Nevada, the great silver state and the gold. New tales of Nevada, the stories, people working hard to make a home. Old tales of Nevada.
Hello everybody, welcome to Old Tales of Nevada, Past and Present. Another special edition this week, talking with one of our old friends and a prolific author of history here in Nevada. We'll tell you the whole story right after this.
Hi there, Roy Marshall here to welcome you to our new world-famous Marshall Mint at the Reno Town Mall. You'll find gold and silver bars, the V&T Railroad, Wild Mustangs, and Angels of the Day medallions, one-of-a-kind estate jewelry, Morgan dollars, fashion gold and quartz jewelry, and see the free museum with precious stones and crystals from all over the world. The Marshall Mint, now open in Reno at the Reno Town Mall.
Boutique Elegante's Winter Super Sale is on now. Get 30 to 50% off all winter fashion, sizes up to 4X. Shop while the selection is great. That and so much more at Boutique Elegante, Lakeside Court in Reno. Boutique Elegante's Winter Super Sale is on now. Get 30 to 50% off all winter fashion, sizes up to 4X. Shop while the selection is great. That and so much more at Boutique Elegante, Lakeside Court in Reno. Welcome everybody to Old Tales of Nevada, Past and Present. Glad to have you with us this week. My name is John O'Brien, the host of the show, and with me, as usual, our executive producer, the one who provides the funds for the show all this time, 300 shows, is Roy Marshall. Glad to have you with us again here, Roy, and boy, what a special edition we have.
Sure, you have it. Oh, yeah.
We have one of our old friends on the show as we move closer and closer to our 300th edition of Old Tales of Nevada, and that is Jack Harpster, who is, as I said in the tease, a prolific author ever since he retired in 2002 from the newspaper business. So, Jack, glad to have you with us again.
I'm delighted to be here again. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, you always have such great stories about the history of northern Nevada, actually Nevada, and about some of the great movers and shakers that provided us with the great state that we live in today. So glad to have you with us. As usual, we like to go to Roy, and Roy tells us why we've been doing the show, all these 300 episodes, and Roy, we'll just turn it over to you and explain why we're here.
We've been eight years and going on
9 years now.
9 years, yeah. Well, it's a long time, but we've definitely hit a lot of the major historical people in the area that have a knowledge of the area, and that's partly why we do the show, because the history of Nevada has not really been known very much because it's a very small populated area, and for the most part, few people know that if it wouldn't have been for Nevada and the Comstock load, the France, Germany, and England's debt would not have been repaid, and we probably would not have formed the United States of America.
That's right. We've been saying that for 8-9 years now, haven't we?
That's right. Another great thing that happened here was the silver dollar. Was basically invented as a monetary unit by the silver that came out of the Comstock load.
Yes, wonderful. Yeah, we've had some great history up there in the Comstock, and it still is happening because of what you're doing up there. You're the explorer.
Well, it was a great technological discovery, the metal and element silver.
Yeah.
Which is more refractive than any other metal.
Yeah, becoming more needed all the time.
And more used all the time.
And what you have found in your recent discoveries up there is that the original Comstock lode was in a certain area, but you're finding that it's moved north. There's actually more to the Comstock lode than originally thought, right?
Well, it just follows the major fault in that area.
Yeah.
Which a couple of professors went over with me in the early 70s.
Right.
Up there in the area. I never really thought about it again after that.
Yeah.
But I kept his information, and he's since passed away, but his work confirms mine too, that the big Bonanza lode continues to the north, to the Sutro, to the road right there where it dies.
Right, exactly.
And it doesn't reappear again until you get to the gooseberry and there's mineralization there.
Yeah.
That's what Lance bought, was
Yeah.
the gooseberry property.
Oh, okay.
The gooseberry mine.
So we figure that there's more gold, more silver than perhaps even the original discovery had. And now we're finding other precious metals there, including platinum.
Yeah.
And that is going on as we speak, that we're verifying that, that discovery. And in that process, you've become involved with the University of Nevada, Reno, with the School of Mines, and in fact, you've made a large donation there so that they can acquire cutting edge equipment called a magnetometer, which you attach to a drone, and you do this aerial survey to identify more anomalies underground. And so that's happening as we speak, right?
Yeah, that is the most cutting edge technology within this field.
Right.
Is the drone.
Yes.
And of course it's helping in many fields.
Yeah, so everything that happens with the university involving research, not only on UROI's property, but when they go out to do it in other places of the state, it's going to be the Marshall magnetometer that they're using as equipment on those kinds of searches. So great stuff there. And the other wonderful thing that you're doing is you've taken the Marshall Mint, which was up there on the Comstock in Virginia City for decades, and you've moved the store down to the Reno Town Mall, which is also historic in its own right. So you have this beautiful store. As you walk in the hall, you just turn in to the right there, and you have all the same stuff you had up on the Comstock, only it's right down here in Reno. Easy to get to.
You betcha. Don't have to go up the Geiger Grade Road to get there.
That's right. But if you do go up to Geiger Grade and you want to spend the night, where do you go?
Go to the Silverland Hotel.
That's right. And what's that reservation number?
847-4484.
You got it, my friend. That's great. So UROI is a busy man.
Get your honey and go up there and have a nice romantic evening.
It's beautiful up there this time of year.
Yeah.
Probably still some snow on the ground up there, I would think.
Traces, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get back to Jack here. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And like we said, you've been writing a lot of books since you retired in '02. Tell us what you did before that, though, before you retired.
Well,
just to refresh our memories here.
I spent 43 years in the newspaper business, all on the business side, in the advertising side. The last 16 years prior to retirement, I was the director of advertising for the Las Vegas Review-Journal and the Las Vegas Sun down south. Then I retired and moved up to beautiful little Reno and had majored in journalism in college way back in the 50s and decided to try it out these many years later, and I started writing, and that's what I've been doing ever since to keep myself busy and out of trouble.
So how do you feel, just to reminisce a little bit here, you work for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, mega newspaper in its day, right? And the Reno Gazette-Journal up here was very, very dominant. So now, as you look at what happened to print, do you have any sad feelings about that?
I do. You know, I was 43 years in the industry, and to see it, let's call it deteriorating, because that's really what it's doing. You know, it's as many industries in the past have done. You know, it's becoming less and less important, and we'll probably all see the end of the newspaper business.
You think so?
Before
You think it's going to disappear altogether?
I think it probably will, and it hurts to say that, but I'm afraid that's what's going to happen.
Because we had some folks on just in a recent show who just opened up another hard copy magazine, and they're very optimistic about it because it's very niche-y, you know, as far as where they send it and for who they send it to.
Right.
But they also have some new technology, augmented intelligence or something like that. It's where you can look at an ad with your phone. It has an app on the phone. You look at the ad on the page, and all of a sudden it brings up a video about the particular client that's advertising in a newspaper or magazines. You know, that may be a new way of growth for that.
It could be indeed. Things are changing very, very fast. You know, and it's hard for me, especially at my age, to guess what might come next. I mean, newspapers might be around for 100 years still. I might be very surprised.
Well, you never know.
In a different format, somewhat, perhaps. But
people still like to read, don't they, Jack?
Yeah, they do.
And you know that because you write books.
Yeah,
you write books. And that's the reason we've had you on the show here a couple of 3-4 times, whatever it is, because every time we turn around, you're writing another book about somebody. And what's really great about your books is you write about people who had a great effect upon the area, or even the United States or the world in some cases, but we don't recognize them very quickly.
Right.
But if they weren't here to do what they did, we wouldn't be what we are today.
Yeah.
Right? So we want to explore that with you today. And we're going to do that as we move forward. We've talked about, let's just talk about some of the people we've had you on the show for.
Sure.
I know you did a show about Mr. Redfield.
That's right.
And a thumbnail explanation of who he was. Tell us real quick.
Well, LeVere Redfield is a little bit different from most of the other people I've done in that he was a very, very different type of an individual. Lived in Reno from 37 till he died in 71, I think, multimillionaire. There were a tremendous amount of folk stories and folklore about Redfield. And though he wasn't well known outside of this area, except for his massive coin collection, the Redfield collection, I just found him, there were so many stories about him that I wanted to find out more. That was why I wrote that book. And that, by the way, is my best-selling book so far.
It is, because he was such a character.
People are just fascinated about LeVere Redfield.
Yeah.
And,
he had all this wealth, but he ran around like he had none.
He did,
He was a
indeed.
miser, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He was very tight-fisted with his money. I have heard him called the Howard Hughes of northern Nevada. That's probably as good a,
It's probably true.
As good a description
and
as any.
his house is still standing.
It is indeed.
His mansion over there.
Unfortunately, they built an awful lot of little small homes all around it and everything, but it's still there. I believe within the past year or so it was sold, and I think somebody else is living there finally.
Okay, yes, on Mount Rose Street between Mount Rose and what is that, Plumas?
Plumas, yeah. Well, within the numismatic community, he is still very well known, and if you buy a silver dollar from the Redfield collection, or from the Redfield hoard as it's called, you're going to pay a premium for it.
Yeah, so good, such good quality. Yeah, and then the other person you've talked to us about, and people probably are a little naive about the history of him, was Mr. Bliss.
Yes.
And give us a thumbnail sketch about what you wrote about there.
Well, the title of the book was the Lumber Baron of the Comstock Lode. And since coming to Nevada, I read an awful lot, obviously, about the Comstock Lode. And there are books about many of the wealthy miners in the Comstock Lode. But when I found out about Bliss, he was extremely wealthy as well, but he didn't make it digging in the ground. He made it, cutting down the lumber to turn into the supports for the mines.
Yeah,
I mean, they go, what is it, 2,000-3,000 feet in the ground, Hugh Roy? Is that about, did they go down that far? How far down did the mines go?
2,800 feet was right.
Okay, so 3,000 is not that far off. Yeah, okay. And something had to hold all of that up.
Yeah.
And it came from lumber, mostly from around the Tahoe Basin.
Yeah.
He did not denude the Tahoe Basin, as many people said, but they took, probably about 2/3 of the lumber out of the Tahoe Basin. It's all grown back so far, fortunately for all of us.
We got to take a break, but we just wanted to help people understand that you wrote about some very, very important people in the area here, whether they were millionaires or not, who created a lot of great history and development here in the area. So appreciate that. We're going to talk about a couple more when we come back on Old Tales of Nevada, past and present.
Everything is handpicked here at Precision Diamonds. All jewelry is handpicked here at Precision Diamonds.
Come to Precision Diamonds. I'll fix your jewelry just like new.
All of us at Shoeman's Custom Cycle are ready to get you and your Harley ready for the road. From oil and tire changes to high-performance engine upgrades and dyno tuning, we at Shoeman's have got you covered with experienced factory-certified mechanics and a full-service machine shop loaded with parts and accessories. Shoeman's Custom Cycle has been serving Northern Nevada since 1988. So ride on down to Shoeman's Custom Cycle at 275 East 4th Street in downtown Reno.
Shoeman's Custom Cycle, we're the biker's bike shop. Hi, I'm Paula.
And I'm Dan. We're the producers of the Tanner's Marketplace Antiques and Craft Shows at the Livestock Event Center on Wells Avenue.
I'd also like to tell you about our everyday location. We're at Somewhere in Time on South Virginia Street. We're Antique Antiques, booth number 46.
You'll find paintings by Nevada artists, collectible glass, vintage jewelry, Native American jewelry and baskets, antiques and unusual to unique items.
Find it all at Antique Antiques inside Somewhere in Time at 1313 South Virginia Street.
Come see us!
Boutique Elegante's Winter Super Sale is on now. Get 30 to 50% off all winter fashion, sizes up to 4X. Shop while the selection is great. That and so much more at Boutique Elegante, Lakeside Court in Reno.
Hi there, Leroy Marshall here to welcome you to our new world-famous Marshall Mint at the Reno Town Mall. You'll find gold and silver bars, the V&T Railroad, Wild Mustangs, and Angels of the Day medallions, one-of-a-kind estate jewelry, Morgan dollars, fashion gold and quartz jewelry, and see the free museum with precious stones and crystals from all over the world. The Marshall Mint, now open in Reno at the Reno Town Mall.
We're back here in Old Tales of Nevada, past and present, and we're talking with Jack Harpster, a good friend of our show, on this special edition of Old Tales of Nevada, past and present, as we count down to our 300th episode, which is a real milestone for any locally produced show here in Northern Nevada. And we might tell people again that all of our shows are being archived in the Historical Society over there at University, as well as special collections. So as we continue on, more and more of those shows are going to be available, and 50 years from now, Jack, you're going to be looking good on video.
And I might still be around to see him.
That's right. Let's hope so. Huh? So we were talking as we left about Mr. Bliss, one of your fine books about the history of that man and what he did, especially in the Tahoe area. And he was a lumber baron who supplied much of the lumber for the square sets up there on the Comstock. But he was even more than that. He took care of Tahoe in different ways too.
Well, he did indeed. When the mines played out in the late 1890s, early 19th century, he turned to tourism, and he built the Tahoe Tavern, which was a magnificent resort in Tahoe City up on the North Shore. He built a narrow gauge railroad from Tahoe City to Truckee, which opened up Lake Tahoe to national and really even international tourism because it tied into the Transcontinental Railroad. So, he accomplished that as well. He also owned, as part of his lumber holdings, 100% of Glenbrook, which of course is one of the real enclave of the wealthies today.
Still today,
And the man accomplished an awful lot. His grandson, Bill Bliss, passed away just within the past year, and to my knowledge, was the last of the Bliss family.
And fortune probably has gone other places. So these are just a few of the books that you've written about individuals who did a lot for Northern Nevada, both in the business world as well as environmentally and other things. But that wasn't the end of your book writing. You also wrote about some other individuals we're going to talk about in particular, and one is named Ogden. And when I first saw the title there, I thought it was about somebody out of Salt Lake City. William R. Ogden?
William B. Ogden.
Big Ogden, Big Ogden. Was he a Mormon out of Salt Lake, or what's the significance of Mr. Ogden?
The Ogden family is a family that goes back in this country to 1641, when a man named John Ogden, who they called the Pilgrim, first came over from England.
Oh, all right.
And the Ogden family line included Peter Skane Ogden, who was an explorer, after whom Ogden, Utah is named.
Oh, okay, that's what.
And William B. Ogden, who was one of the early founders of the city of Chicago, and was also, and other authors have called him this, America's first great railroad man.
Oh, no kidding.
He was very, very instrumental in the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, which will celebrate its sesquicentennial in 2019. Union Pacific Railroad is gearing up for big year-long promotions about that. And generally, when people think of the Transcontinental Railroad, particularly out here, they think about the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific.
Right.
But that really is only 57% of the transcontinental route. The other 43% is made up of two other railroads, the Pennsylvania Railroad and the Chicago Northwestern, both of which William B. Ogden was instrumental in building. Okay. So I had an article published earlier this year in Trains magazine.
Oh, okay.
And the title of it is Ogden, the Forgotten Genius of the Transcontinental Railroad. And that's published in a special edition due to come out in January as part of the
So his railroad basically came from the East Coast.
That's correct.
Very East Coast,
yeah.
Right? And he brought it how far to the west?
Well, what is today the Pennsylvania Railroad at the time was the Pittsburgh, Fort Wayne, and something else, went from New York to Chicago.
Okay.
And he was instrumental in saving that railroad when it was about to go into bankruptcy.
Okay.
And then he personally built the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad that went from Chicago to Omaha.
Ah.
And of course, from Omaha on, it was the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific. Nice. Yet when people talk about the Transcontinental Railroad, they don't even know of or think of the name Ogden.
No, so, it's Crocker and people
that's right.
that nature.
Yeah.
You know, just as an aside, we were down at the Railroad Museum here in Carson City, and they have what they consider to be the most famous railroad car in the United States, and it is actually the car that carried the VIPs from the West Coast to Promontory. We say Point, but it's not actually Point, is it? It's Promontory something else.
Promontory Summit.
Summit, yeah. Promontory Summit is actually where it happened.
See, I wasn't aware that they had that.
They have that, yeah. And boy, what a history that car has had.
I've got to go back and see it.
You got to go see it.
They have the Glenbrook there as well, which of course was one of Dwayne Bliss's railroad cars.
Oh.
He bought that locomotive when he was cutting down the lumber for the Comstock load. That was a Tahoe area railroad.
How about that? Yeah. So anyway, it's there. It's in derelict condition, and they're not going to restore it. They've arrested the deterioration, but they certainly have the story. We did a show down there, and it's on YouTube. You can watch the episode.
I will look that up because I wasn't aware they had that.
Yeah, they have some great people working down there. So Ogden, besides doing the railroad, did he have any significance to northern Nevada?
Okay. Yeah. Well, not really, no. William B. Ogden was one of the early founders of the city of Chicago as well.
Oh, okay.
He moved there in the early 1830s, I believe. He was a New York investor.
I see.
And he and his investment group bought a large piece of what would become Chicago eventually. And he moved from New York to Chicago to develop and resell this land. And when Chicago received its city charter in 1840s sometime. I can't remember the date.
Before the fire.
Yes, much before the fire.
Yeah.
He was elected the first mayor of the city of Chicago as well. So,
but if he could only come back today and see what's going on there now, huh?
True.
How we'd feel.
Yeah. He also built what was at the time, this was in the 1860s, the largest lumber business in the country in Peshtigo, Wisconsin. And the day of the Chicago fire, we all know about the Chicago fire, the entire city of Peshtigo burned down as well. And they lost between 2,500 and 3,000 people in that fire. It is still the largest loss of life in a forest fire in U.S. history. And so Ogden lost his beloved city of Chicago and all of those people in Peshtigo on the same day. He was never really the same man again. He lived on about another 8 years after that, and he finally died.
Must have been devastating.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Losing all of that and those people? Unbelievable,
Indeed,
yeah. So is that the title that has the word captive in it, or was that another?
No, that's another person by the name of Ogden who, when I first discovered his story, I thought was the same family.
Oh, okay.
William B. Ogden, by the way, is my first cousin 4 times removed.
Oh.
His father and my great-great-great-great-grandfather were brothers.
Oh, okay.
That's what got me interested in the family.
How do you find out about this?
Well, you got to look it up. You got to study it. Yeah.
DNA or what?
And when I first discovered David Ogden's amazing story as a young Revolutionary War soldier, I started following that story and found out that he was from a different line of Ogdens, but his story was so compelling that I wanted to tell that story as well. So that was why I wrote that book. But he's not related to the William B. Ogden or the John Ogden, who was my first book. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between we have this Ogden that did the railroads in Chicago and all that. And what about this other Ogden? And what was his claim to fame?
There were 2 Ogdens who Ancestry.com guesses might have been distant cousins. John Ogden, and another man also named John Ogden. John Ogden came over in 1635. The first John Ogden in 1635. My family, John Ogden, in 1641, and there were 2 separate branches, probably tied together in England somewhere at some point, but nobody quite knows what. And those are the two separate lines. Okay. But in my study of that, I found out that there are a number of villages named Ogden in England. Okay. And in our history here, a city or a town's name is usually taken from the founder of the town. In England, it was just exactly the opposite. You move into the town and you take on the name of the town. You would become John of Ogden if you moved to the little town of Ogden. So that's why there could be 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5 John Ogdens, you know, who might be or might not be related.
Those Englishmen are complicated, aren't they?
They are indeed, yes.
So what did that Ogden do? What you have a title called Captive? What was his problem?
During the Revolutionary War, he was an American soldier, and he was captured by the Iroquois Indians had sided with the British in the Revolutionary War.
Big mistake, yeah.
And there was one very, very famous Indian chief named Joseph Brant. He had an English name. The Indian name is like this, and I don't even try it. He captured David Ogden in a war skirmish, took him all the way across the state of New York, where the British fort was, and he was kept prisoner there for some months, and then he escaped, and he literally ran all the way across the state of New York back to where he had come from in eastern New York.
Let me hold you there. We'll come back and finish that story as we take a break here on Old Tales of Nevada, past and present. Stay tuned.
Hey everyone, Dave Asher here, introducing you to our new store, the Nevada Marketplace, in the Reno Town Mall. Anchored with the Buy Nevada First gift shop, we've added over 60 micro shops, giving locals a place to set up their dream store. We are now 20,000 square feet strong, supporting over 250 local merchants with all things made in Nevada and more. We have more locals in one place than anywhere in the state, ready to help you find that perfect gift. We're open every day with easy parking at Peckham and Virginia. Go to buynevadafirst.com, your source for all things local.
Boutique Elegante's Winter Super Sale is on now. Get 30 to 50% off all winter fashion, sizes up to 4X. Shop while the selection is great. That and so much more at Boutique Elegante, Lakeside Court in Reno. Boutique Elegante's Winter Super Sale is on now. Get 30 to 50% off all winter fashion, sizes up to 4X. Shop while the selection is great. That and so much more at Boutique Elegante, Lakeside Court in Reno.
All of us at Shoeman's Custom Cycle are ready to get you and your Harley ready for the road. From oil and tire changes to high-performance engine upgrades and dyno tuning, we at Shoeman's have got you covered with experienced factory-certified mechanics and a full-service machine shop loaded with parts and accessories. Shoeman's Custom Cycle has been serving Northern Nevada since 1988. So ride on down to Shoeman's Custom Cycle at 275 East 4th Street in downtown Reno.
Shoeman's Custom Cycle, we're the biker's bike shop.
Somewhere in Time is the place to find what will be treasured for all time. Vintage and antique furniture, glassware, toys, tools, neon, home decor, unusual collections throughout the store at Somewhere in Time in Reno.
Deluxe Travel, locally owned and operating since 1991, is the home for travel to Mexico and Central and South America. The crew at Deluxe Travel is bilingual, trustworthy, thorough, and caring. They will do everything possible to make your dream vacation the best it can be. Now is the time to book for winter travel, so stop by the office at 100 California Avenue or call 686-7000. You can also check us out on our website at deluxetravelLTD.com.
At Deluxe Travel, we sell dreams. Come in and plan yours.
It's our third segment here on Old Tales Nevada, past and present. Just to remind everybody who we are, I'm John O'Brien, the host of the show. Roy Marshall next to me, our executive producer, and our special guest on our special edition this week is Jack Harpster. What a mind for history, and what a researcher. I mean, when you write these books, I mean, it just doesn't lay there open to the public as far as the history goes. You got to do a lot of digging.
You do. That's, if you're a nonfiction writer, the research is as important as the writing is. Some of our most famous biographers, and I consider myself primarily a biographer, hire the research done because they're rich and important.
That's right.
I do my own, but I'm fortunate in that I enjoy the research as much as I do the writing. So it's a package for me. And
so let's get back to Mr. Ogden there,
Yes.
John Ogden this time. And so you had him captive by the Iroquois.
No, David Ogden.
David Ogden,
captured by the Iroquois.
Takes him across the state of New York. What happens then?
Well, he was held captive for a couple of months, and then he broke out, escaped, and had to get all the way back across the state of New York to his home near Albany.
Okay.
And he walked and ran the whole distance with Iroquois chasing him much of the way and everything, and British soldiers chasing him.
Wow.
But he made it all the way back. Now, his story was first told in the 1830s or 40s by a writer in what they used to call a dime novel, which were exciting stories and everything that were half truth and half fiction. And when I found out about that, and I got that book, and then worked very, very hard to kind of separate the fact from the fiction, and hopefully everything that ended up in my book was just was the accurate part of how he made that miraculous escape, with a look at who the Iroquois were, and particularly this Joseph Brant, who was an amazing man, the Iroquois chieftain of the entire Iroquois Confederation. The Iroquois was actually a confederation of 5 or 6 different tribes.
Oh, I did not know
put together by this man whose English name was Joseph Brant. It was a fascinating story, and anytime I hear a fascinating story, it hasn't been told before, or not since 1830. I'm anxious to write about it. Yeah.
So the process of thinking about a book and actually getting it to a publisher and having it printed and up for sale, how long of a process is that for you?
It can be a 3-year process.
A 3-year process, yeah. So you're not just sitting there at the typewriter and going after it. You have all that research to do, and then you have to do a rough copy, and then somebody probably has to proofread it, right? Then, or you edit it yourself and decide, I don't need that paragraph.
Usually the publisher provides an editor who does that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But then, unfortunately, today the book publishing business has changed a lot. The author has to do much of his own publicity nowadays as well.
I think we just lost a light there. Hey, we're back. We had a little technical difficulty there. One of our lights went out, so we stopped and fixed it, and now we're back on. So we were talking about that Indian chief with the English name.
Joseph Brant.
Joseph Brant, and he was quite the organizer, evidently, huh?
He was. He brought about 6 or 7 of the tribes together in upstate New York under the Iroquois Confederation. Yeah. He also traveled to England a couple of times. That's when he became, on the English side during the Revolutionary War. But absolutely amazing man. There've been a couple of books written about him.
Yeah, and we were talking about also, as we ran into that difficulty there, that he or your efforts to write any book is quite the endeavor. I mean, it takes years to put it all together, get it ready for sale. And a lot of editing and proofing and all that kind of thing. But the end result must be so satisfying for you, isn't it? And to see some people actually want the book.
The first, you've sent a whole bunch of stuff off to the publisher. The manuscript itself, the pictures you've gathered together, you send that all in.
Yeah.
And then about a year later, sometimes, one copy shows up at your house.
Yeah.
And you get it, and you hold it in your hands for the first time. It's an advanced copy.
Yeah.
And it's a great thrill. It really is.
Yeah. Now, we always hear about these publishers who sell millions of copies of a book. I mean, that's not necessarily the case with publishers, because yours is more of a scholastic type of publisher and or publishing, and so the readership is more for the history buff.
That's correct.
And that sort of thing. But that doesn't deter you. Money isn't your main objective here anyway, right? It's to preserve history.
No, if I break even on a book, I'm just happy as can be.
No, that's wonderful. That's good. That's good. And so you've also done other books, and one of them hits close to home. It's about Mr. Red, and what was his first name?
William Cy Red.
William Cy Red.
William Cyrus Red. That's where the Cy comes from. Yes.
So he was very important to northern Nevada and for Vegas and actually for the whole state. Tell us why.
Well, Cy Red was born in New York, born in Mississippi, of sharecropper parents. So he came from the very bottom rung of society's ladder. Started working, got his first job when he was about 7 or 8 years old. Always worked, got into penny slot machine type of things originally. Then he got into jukeboxes.
He built them, or
no?
He sold them.
He sold them. Yeah,
okay.
He sold them. He was a salesman. He primarily a super salesman.
Super salesman. Yeah.
And then he had an opportunity. He knew the man who ran Bally. Was a good friend of his, because Bally also made the other type of slot machines and everything
that was kind of the original name of slot machines, wasn't it? Bally's.
Well, Bally was one of the early manufacturers. But there were a number of them, and they were in Chicago as well. And Cy Red got to know the president of Bally's pretty well, and when an opening came to run the distributorship of Bally's slot machines in Nevada opened up, they thought of Cy Red, because he had sold a lot of their music boxes and everything else. He was offered the opportunity to buy half of the distributorship, and they would own the other half. He moved to Las Vegas, and this goes into the 1950s.
Okay, so this must have been just after Bugsy Malone got down there and began to develop the area, right?
Well, no, it was a little bit later. It was a little bit. It could even be the 60s. I forget some of the days specifically. It probably was in the 60s and everything, because by that time, I think most of the criminal element was gone. And everything. Okay. But slot machines at that time, the only slot machine at that time, or the one that probably had 90% of the market, was the old one-arm bandit.
Like that. Sure, we remember those.
That's what a slot machine was back in the day, and Cy Red sold them better than anyone else, because he was just a natural-born salesman, and it was under his auspices. He eventually bought the distributorship completely. It was under Cy's auspices that video poker machines were invented.
Yeah, it was a big.
Yeah, did he? Was that his vision?
It was not his vision, but a number of people, some of the gaming experts of the days, looked at the prototype they built and they said, oh, it's a waste of time, it'll never work. But Cy knew differently, and his company, which eventually became IGT, the world's largest slot machine manufacturer, Cy put these video poker machines into every casino, every casino in Nevada over the years and everything, and made a whale of a lot of money doing it.
Yeah.
But, the second half of the 20th century, he was probably the most important man in the gaming business.
Worldwide.
He also came up with the big jumbo jackpots. What do you call them? The multi-million-dollar jackpots, where machines from all the different casinos are all ganged together. And Megabucks. Thank you. He came up with Megabucks and everything. Cy never quite knew when to stop, however. So he went, after he was bought out, and the fellow who ran IGT for many, many years, very well-known man whose name escapes me now, but he took over. Cy went down to southern Nevada, and what's the community down there?
Laughlin?
No, not Laughlin. By the water.
That's
river.
Laughlin.
Laughlin, yeah.
Sure.
Cy established gaming in Laughlin.
Oh, yeah, which is great.
Owned much of it, owned the big golf course and everything else down there.
Yeah.
And he worked until he was about 95 years old. They finally pushed him off to one side where he was just an official greeter, if you would, even though he still owned most of the properties. And he lived through, till his mid to late 90s, and he finally passed away.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Again, we talk about entrepreneurs. It must be the air here in Nevada or something, because people just come to Nevada and all of a sudden they become important business people, not only for the state, but for the world. I mean, IGT is all over the world right now.
Sure it is. And Roy, you knew Cy, didn't you?
Wow. What a privilege that must have been, huh?
They would get together with Louise and her husband and a few other ones, and we'd all get drunk together.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, listen, actually, we're down to our...
I only did that once.
But it must have been a lot of fun and some good booze, I'll tell you that.
Kind of fun.
So we got to take a break, unfortunately, and then come back for our last segment here on Old Tales of Nevada. So stay tuned. More to come with Jack Harpster and Old Tales of Nevada.
Hey everyone, Dave Asher here, introducing you to our new store, the Nevada Marketplace, in the Reno Town Mall. Anchored with the Buy Nevada First gift shop, we've added over 60 micro shops, giving locals a place to set up their dream store. We are now 20,000 square feet strong, supporting over 250 local merchants with all things made in Nevada and more. We have more locals in one place than anywhere in the state, ready to help you find that perfect gift. We're open every day with easy parking at Peckham and Virginia. Go to buynevadafirst.com, your source for all things local.
Boutique Elegante's Winter Super Sale is on now. Get 30 to 50% off all winter fashions, sizes up to 4X. Shop while the selection is great. That and so much more at Boutique Elegante, Lakeside Court in Reno.
Everything is handpicked here at Precision Diamonds. All jewelry is handpicked here at Precision Diamonds.
Come to Precision Diamonds. I'll fix your jewelry just like new.
Hi there, Roy Marshall here to welcome you to our new world-famous Marshall Mint at the Reno Town Mall. You'll find gold and silver bars, the V&T Railroad, Wild Mustangs, and Angels of the Day medallions, one-of-a-kind estate jewelry, Morgan dollars, fashion gold and quartz jewelry, and see the free museum with precious stones and crystals from all over the world. The Marshall Mint, now open in Reno at the Reno Town Mall.
All of us at Shoeman's Custom Cycle are ready to get you and your Harley ready for the road. From oil and tire changes to high-performance engine upgrades and dyno tuning, We at Shoeman's have got you covered with experienced factory-certified mechanics and a full-service machine shop loaded with parts and accessories. Shoeman's Custom Cycle has been serving Northern Nevada since 1988. So ride on down to Shoeman's Custom Cycle at 275 East 4th Street in downtown Reno.
Shoeman's Custom Cycle with a biker's bike shop.
Somewhere in Time is the place to find what will be treasured for all time. Vintage and antique furniture, glassware, toys, tools, neon, home decor, unusual collections throughout the store at Somewhere in Time in Reno. Boutique Elegante's winter super sale is on now. Get 30 to 50% off all winter fashion, sizes up to 4X. Shop while the selection is great. That and so much more at Boutique Elegante, Lakeside Court in Reno.
Come to Precision Diamonds. I'll fix your jewelry just like new.
Deluxe Travel, locally owned and operating since 1991, is the home for travel to Mexico and Central and South America. The crew at Deluxe Travel is bilingual, trustworthy, thorough, and caring. They will do everything possible to make your dream vacation the best it can be. Now is the time to book for winter travel, so stop by the office at 100 California Avenue or call 686-7000. You can also check us out on our website at deluxetravelLTD.com.
At Deluxe Travel, we sell dreams. Come in and plan yours.
Boutique Elegante's winter super sale is on now. Get 30 to 50% off all winter fashion, sizes up to 4X. Shop while the selection is great. That and so much more at Boutique Elegante, Lakeside Court in Reno. We're back for our last segment of Old Tales of Nevada for this week, and we're having a special edition because we have our good friend Jack Harpster back with us, and as you can tell, he's a prolific author and has written some important books about some important people here in Nevada, and we're glad to have you with us, Jack, as we move forward to our 300th episode of Old Tales Nevada, Past and Present. Now, as we end our show today, I'd like to focus on somebody who was very important for Reno, and that is Mr. Myron Lake. He wrote a book called The Genesis of Reno.
Right.
And, you know, many people are moving into Reno every day, every day. I was watching the news on the last week, I think it was, and they said 7,000 more people are working at the Tesla factory. And many of those people are coming from California, have absolutely no knowledge of what happened here in Nevada or why Reno is even here. And you have it all in your book, The Genesis of Reno. So give us a description of this guy, Myron Lake, and how he brought Reno to be here in Nevada.
Well, my book, of course, talks primarily about the fellow who I consider to be the founder of Reno instead of Myron Lake, but that's arguable, I realize. But a man named Bill Fuller came to what is today Reno in 1859 and built a bridge across the Truckee River where the Virginia Street Bridge sits
Still there today.
And he built a little inn and tavern where the Riverside Hotel sits today.
Amazing.
And there was, the Comstock had started, but there was no food anywhere near the Comstock, so the food all had to come from California. So these big wagon trains of food and herds of sheep and cattle and everything had to get to Virginia City from California, and that's what the bridge is for, to get them across the river. The Truckee River has never been a very deep or very swift river, but it's all full of boulders. You can't walk across it very easy.
Not easy thing to do.
So Bill Fuller built that bridge, built the hotel and everything, and a year and a half later, he traded it to Myron Lake for a ranch that he had up in Northern California. Myron Lake came in, and he certainly took much more advantage of the bridge and hotel than Fuller had done, and he also convinced the railroad to make Reno, or the settlement that became Reno, the Eastern Sierra
depot
for the Central Pacific Railroad, and that's really what made the city. So, depending on on what you mean when you say a founder. Fuller actually was the first one there to build something, but Myron Lake was the one who really turned it into a town and
he made a ton of money.
And he made a ton of money.
Another entrepreneurial exercise. That's
right.
Very successful.
Yeah.
Because he used to charge a toll. Did Fuller charge a toll?
Fuller charged a toll as well. Interesting thing about Myron Lake is the same winter that he bought the thing, a storm came up and it washed the bridge away. So Lake had to completely rebuild the bridge, and 2 years later, it washed away again.
Wow.
So, he hung with it, though, and he made his money, on the tolls primarily from the bridge and everything.
Yeah. Now, I heard he became at least one of the richest men in the United States.
Yeah, he was very, very wealthy.
Yeah.
From all the things.
From the tolls and from the land sales, because I guess he subdivided the west side, didn't he? The west side of the bridge, and sold that off in parcels to
to the folks.
Yeah, to the folks.
Who came in. Yeah. He had a lot more vision than Bill Fuller did. And that's why he became a very wealthy man.
Was Myron Lake a businessman before he came to Reno?
Yes,
he was. Where did he actually hail from? Was it the Midwest or something, or was it all the way back east?
I do not remember.
Yeah,
John, I'm sorry. Now he was hated by the townspeople.
Yes.
Myron Lake. He was very tight-fisted, and the people in the town just did not like him at all. And when he finally passed away, everyone was jubilant.
It was like
had
good
it
riddance.
not been for him, this would not have been the Eastern Sierra terminus or a depot for the Central Pacific Railroad. So I mean, he did.
Even his wife couldn't live with him, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
But she was pretty sharp. She got the mansion.
Yes, she did.
Which is still standing. Do you remember where the original location was for the mansion?
The mansion was very close to the end of the bridge, but I don't.
It's on the corner of California and Virginia. You know where the old bank building was? The Chamber of Commerce is in there now, but that's where the original location was. Now they've moved it over to Lakes or Plumas. What is it? Plumas. Yeah, is that Plumas? Arlington.
There we go.
We're good, aren't we?
They're all the same.
I've only been here since '86. Arlington. They have a nice setup there.
They do.
You can walk through the mansion.
It's a very nice museum.
And resource center. Remember? Yeah. So we did the show over there right on location.
Oh, good.
It's another show you can watch on Old Tales in Nevada. If you go to YouTube, you can probably find it. What a guy. And he kind of set the pace for the type of people that moved into Reno, because shortly after he was here, other entrepreneurs came in. I know in the mansion, the people who bought the mansion from Mrs. Lake, they were also very successful people too. He was in the freight business. I can't remember his name. I know you probably know it, but we're pulling this out of the air right now. We didn't do a lot of research on it, but another great book that is available, and we've been talking about all these books. Where can you find the books?
Well, some of the books, a few of the local books, are, of course, you can find at Sundance or Barnes and Noble. But all of my books are on Amazon.com. You can just go in and put my name, Jack Harpster, on Amazon.com under books, and they'll all pop up.
That's why I got this right here.
That's right.
In fact, Sundance Books is in a very historic building. Was that a governor who was in there, or what was the deal on that one?
I've heard the name of the mansion, but it wasn't a name I ever recognized. I think it was an old family.
Spencer has, our good friend Spencer Hobson has the history on that building, because his family, the Balakwa family, the movers, they actually moved that building there.
Oh, really?
From another location, So that's got a lot of history behind it too. So what's your thoughts about another book You said you just finished a book. Why did you do that?
Well, I wrote my autobiography, rather slim book, which I self-published because I just printed 50 copies to send to my extended family, being the oldest living member of my family.
You're the patriarch.
Now. That's right. I wanted to preserve some family stories that I was aware of that go back 3, 4, 5 generations, and I wanted to preserve them for the younger people in the family.
Yeah, no video associated with that. It's all in written form? All written form?
All in written form, yeah. And it's not even for sale. I printed 50 of them and I sent them all out to relatives and everything.
What you might want to do is put it on audio as well, If it's good enough for Obama to do that, it's good enough for you, right?
I don't quite have the same background.
No, that'd be great. So, but as far as doing a full-fledged another book about another individual, and there are many that you could probably write about.
If somebody fascinating were to turn up, I'd probably start looking into it,
Yeah.
But nothing. I have nothing in mind right now. I enjoy doing the magazine articles and these kind of things.
Yeah.
It doesn't take nearly the commitment on something like that.
How long does it take you to write an article from scratch? And how many words do you have?
Well, if it's something I know about, I write a lot of the articals come out of my books and everything.
Oh, you just excerpts them.
I just don't pull them out. I rewrite them and everything else.
Yeah.
And those can only take me 3 or 4 days.
But like 500 words or
one
more?
From scratch, this particular one there, I wrote that is from the Automotive Museum here in town. That's the oldest known American-made automobile still in existence. And
what make is that?
It is, well, it was only a one-off, and it really,
just a prototype.
It's called a Phillian Steam Road Carriage.
Hey.
And it's the oldest known American-made automobile, and it was the fellow who made it was a circus performer, and I thought that's kind of odd.
Yeah.
So I decided to investigate it and write that article. So that probably took me a month or so to put together.
There's never a void as far as subjects to write about. Especially in Nevada, I think.
Yes.
You could write a book about this guy right here.
Could indeed. Maybe 2.
Maybe 2.
Yeah, that's right.
We keep telling him that he needs to write a book, and you have notes. I know you have notes, but he needs a ghostwriter to work with him to get it done.
Well, I told him once about 3 or 4 years ago. You brought that up, Hugh Roy, and I said, "You have my phone number. If you ever, if ever anything I can do, give me a call." And that offer's still open.
Yeah, because
I'm 3 or 4 years older now than I was then.
Because his family goes way back. I mean, back to Houston and Wildcat days. His dad was one of the richest men, not his dad, but your grandfather was one of the richest men in the world.
Yeah.
Because of his work down there in Houston.
It would be a fascinating story. Yeah.
Well, listen, we have to unfortunately close the show, but Jack, we really appreciate you taking your time and coming back to see us one more time.
I consider it an honor to be invited back, and particularly for the 300th,
special shows leading up to our 300th. Yeah. I don't know who we're going to have for our 300th. We may just rent an auditorium and have everybody come back.
Or find a 300-year-old man or woman.
That's right. That would be But thanks for doing that for us. And you, Roy, thanks for letting us do the show for so many episodes. And most of all, we'd like to thank our loyal audience here. We have a great audience, and we hear from them, and they watch the show on a regular basis. So we appreciate that. But for Jack and for you, Roy, and for myself, we'd like to invite you back next week for another special edition of Old Tales Nevada, Past and Present. And in the meantime, like we always say, right? You're right. Have a great Nevada day, and we'll see you next week on Old Tales Nevada, Past and Present.